Welcome to Your Health on Tech. I'm Dr. John Whyte, the Chief Medical Officer at WebMD. In medicine, we tend to focus on analyzing blood and doing x-rays and special imaging to help assess one's health. Yet there often are simpler ways to check on one's wellness. For instance, your stool can provide a great deal of information about your health. Its size, shape, color, and frequency can all give clues to tell you and your doctor how you're doing. I get it. You might not want to look at it too closely, and you're not really sure what's normal. AI can help you out. There's currently an app to help analyze stool samples. My guest today is Dr. Mark Pimentel. He's the Executive Director of the Medically Associated Science and Technology Program, as well as Professor of Medicine at Cedars-Sinai. Welcome, Mark, to Your Health on Tech.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here with you.
Mark, we're all used to using urine to give some assessments about our health. We look at it in terms of kidney stones, diabetes, infections. What does our stool tell us about our health?
Some patients are very fixated on what their poop looks like and how it's being affected in their health and disease, and others are not. But poop can tell you a lot of things because it changes color, it changes form and shape, and so I think it has significant value and is undervalued.
You did a study that focused on this app for patients with irritable bowel syndrome. Can you tell us what your study showed and how the app worked?
So let me start with a little background. When patients do irritable bowel syndrome studies, or to be frank, any study where the patient is required to provide the information, sometimes we get information that's skewed. And I'm not saying the patient doesn't know what they're doing. What I'm saying is if you have 10 bowel movements today, and somebody asks you at the end of the day to tell them what the average is for the day, are you going to report the last one, the first one? Are you going to be really good at averages with your guessing mind of what the day was like? Or are you going to take the worst one because that was the one that made you the most miserable? So it's a little inaccurate in that sense. And so what we came up with the idea is if you had an app and you were to take photographs of your stool, the app does all the work for you. And this gives greater accuracy. And this is really important in IBS studies, especially because IBS is all about what the patient tells you in terms of response to help us develop new drugs.
Why are we so bad about assessing our own stool, right? We do it several times a week. We don't necessarily have to do it every day. Yet when it comes to describing it, we may not be as accurate as we need to be. I ask patients all the time, do you see blood in your stool? They don't really know. We ask if they're tarry or dark. Sometimes patients will say, I never look. Why are we so bad? I don't think we're as bad when we think about urine and some other issues.
Well, a couple of things. We never like to talk about stool because that's a weird conversation. Second of all, even this week, I had a patient in my clinic. I'm a gastroenterologist, been a gastroenterologist for 27 years. And she says to me, this is a bit of an awkward conversation, but I'd like to tell you what my stool looks like. And I'm like, well, that's not an awkward conversation. That's part of our conversation today. And then, the third thing is, and you've probably experienced this yourself in seeing patients. Patients come to you and you ask them, so how's your stool? Oh, it's fine. Well, tell me more. And then you learn that they've had diarrhea. Well, but I've had that for 10 years. So they assume it's normal. So all of these, and there's other variations on the theme, all of these things mean you have to talk about stool. You have to understand what the patient is going through. And you can't accept the patient saying, oh, yeah, it's fine as an answer because it isn't always fine because they don't always understand what fine is.
Do you find this tool helps to empower patients?
I think, if you think about how the app can be applied, the app takes the picture and gives you the characteristics of the stool and how close things are to normal. And then, so let's say, for example, you're not normal and a doctor were to give you an intervention, whatever the intervention may be. It could be as simple as fiber or higher fiber in your diet. It could be more complex with drugs. And then you can track in the app the changes. Now you're closer to normal. Now the patient may be saying, well, I don't really feel all that much better, but oh my gosh, the app is telling me, no, I'm wrong. It is better. And it really helps the clinician and helps the patient sort of ground them in what's normal and what's that's scientifically real in terms of their stool and what's going on.
Are you surprised at all that we haven't seen more development in this space? Is it partly because in the past, AI has been kind of focused on what's glitzy, right? How do I analyze someone's heart rhythm by a laser 300 meters away? And now we're talking about, as you kind of pointed out, how do I analyze my own poop to tell me about my health? Is there a change in how we're thinking about the role of health tech and healthcare?
Well, I think GI diseases are tuned in more to their illness and are open to this kind of thing. The question is, will people are perceiving themselves as otherwise healthy, would they use it? And I think what we've learned in the study is that once people started using it, they loved it because it was telling them information that they hadn't previously recognized, and they were getting it wrong. And in the trial, we showed that they were literally getting it wrong compared to the app. And so, if if that's true, then all of our studies in irritable bowel syndrome all these years were slightly off because the patients weren't describing what they were actually seeing because they didn't really understand what was being asked of them.
But where do you see this leading to? We talked before we started. Is there going to be a role in colorectal cancer screening, a role in inflammatory bowel disease? Where do you see this progressing? Because it really is fascinating when we think about the role of our stool in wellness and being able to use AI to give us more information.
You can detect form, you can detect color. So, for example, if there's blood in the stool, you can see it. This may be important, for example, to detect early colon cancer. That's one application. But a lot of patients with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, as part of the illness, they have blood in their stool. And so, when you have blood in your stool and then you get treatment and that blood goes away and is detected by the app as a beneficial event, that can be relayed to your doctor. So you don't have a doctor's visit for another 2 months, but the doctor already has an indication from the app, blood's gone, the drugs are working. And so, okay, good. So I don't need to call them yet. Let's see them at the next visit. And so there are a lot of interesting potential applications for this that I think would be beneficial for care.
And Mark, is this app commercially available today?
Yes, I mean, if you go to the App Store, you'll find it as Dieta IBS Tracker, and you can check your own stool. Now, its integration with color and also transferring information to the physician is in progress, so things will evolve over time. But it has applications for the patient already. So, for example, that instance that I mentioned of the patient who thinks they're normal, but then they start taking pictures, and the app says you're not normal. Maybe you need to see somebody. They could have an infection that they didn't know about. They could have irritable bowel syndrome. They could have something and they just weren't aware.
So right now there's a version available to consumers where they could get some information to then share with their doctor. Where can people learn more about you and what you're doing?
So our work is at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. We've been researching the gut microbiome and stool and all of this for many decades. And I'm, as you said, the executive director at the MAST program. So if you type in csmast.com, you can get information about all the research that we're doing here.
Dr. Pimentel, thanks for taking the time to join us on Your Health on Tech today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.